Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says his country is on track to plant 10 billion trees in the next 3 years to mitigate the effects of climate change. He was speaking virtually to a global climate change summit being hosted by the United Nations. The Prime Minister said Pakistan has adopted nature-based solutions to reduce levels of carbon emissions. Meanwhile, UN Chief Antonio Guterres has called on the governments to declare a state of climate emergency. Pakistan has rejected India's attempts to deny responsibility for the global disinformation campaign exposed by the EU Disinfo Lab. The Foreign Office said the international community must hold India accountable for its subversive activities. The EU Disinfo Lab has earlier uncovered a network of fake websites and think tanks working to discredit Pakistan. In India, police have detained several protesting farmers in an attempt to stop them from blocking major highways into New Delhi. Tens of thousands of farmers have been protesting near the capital against new agriculture reforms now for the last 17 days. Despite the crackdown, farmer unions vowed to continue their protest and announced a hunger strike on Monday. ISIS has claimed responsibility for multiple rocket attacks in the north of Kabul. According to the Afghan Interior Ministry, the attacks left one person dead and 2 others wounded. Meanwhile, the Afghan government says next rounds of the ongoing peace talks with the Taliban must be held in Afghanistan. The global number of coronavirus infections has surpassed 70 million, with more than 1.59 million deaths. With more than 294,000 deaths, the United States has approved an emergency use of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Meanwhile, Brazil's COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 180,000 figure, with its caseload exceeding 6.7 million. Pakistan has registered over 2,700 new cases and 71 new deaths, while the death tally has topped 8,700. And in the English Premier League, Aston Villa edged past Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0 at the Monolith Stadium. Villa snatched victory in the final moments of the game thanks to Anwar Al Ghazi goal from a penalty. With this win, Aston Villa are now 8th on the table with 18 points. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break.
मेरा नाम फरहान अयूब है और मेरा ताल्लुक टोबर टेक्सिंग से है। मैं एक मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से बिलोंग करता हूँ। मैं बहुत छोटा था जब मेरे फादर की डेथ हो गई थी। 7 साल की उम्र में मैंने मार्शल आर्ट की ट्रेनिंग स्टार्ट कर दी थी। मैं खुद से बिना किसी एकेडमी के टीचर के गलियों में, सड़कों में, पार्कों में ट्रेनिंग किया करता था। पहले 12-13 साल तक मुझे सीरियस नहीं लिया गया, लेकिन फिर सन 2014 में मैंने पंजाब यूथ फेस्टिवल में पहला गिनीज वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड ब्रेक किया, जो था द मोस्ट किप अप्स इन 1 मिनट। और इसके बाद भी मैंने अपनी ट्रेनिंग मुसलसल जारी रखी। फिर सन 2017 में मैंने 3 गिनीज वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड ब्रेक किए। उसमें द मोस्ट नो हैंडेड किप अप शामिल है, द मोस्ट गोल बॉल्स पिक द विद फीट, ये भी इसमें शामिल है। मुझे हाईएस्ट लेवल पर पजीराई मिली। उस वक्त यह था कि मेरे पास अपने तलीमी वसाइल नहीं थे। आज मैं BS मीडिया का स्टूडेंट हूँ और अपनी एजुकेशन भी साथ कर रहा हूँ, ट्रेनिंग भी साथ कर रहा हूँ। 2018 में 12 वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड ब्रेक किए। इस तरह अब तक मेरे पास 20 गिनीज वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड है 7 कंट्रीज के, जो मैं ब्रेक कर चुका हूँ। गिनीज बुक ऑफ वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड ने 2020 की गिनीज बुक में मुझे शामिल किया है। मेरा पाकिस्तान के लिए ख्वाब है कि मैं पाकिस्तान के लिए 50 गिनीज वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड ब्रेक करूँ।
Welcome back. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says his country is on track to plant 10 billion trees in the next 3 years to mitigate the effects of climate change. He was speaking virtually to a global climate change summit being hosted by the United Nations. The Prime Minister said Pakistan has adopted nature-based solutions, reduced carbon emissions. Meanwhile, UN Chief Antonio Guterres has called on governments to declare a state of climate emergency. The summit aims to rally momentum for much greater global action to tackle climate change. This also marks the 5th anniversary of the historic Paris Agreement. Pakistan has rejected India's attempts to deny responsibility for the global disinformation campaign exposed by the EU Disinfo Lab. The Foreign Office said the international community must hold India accountable for its malicious propaganda against Pakistan. It said the world has seen the reality of India as a state sponsor of terrorism. The EU Disinfo Lab has earlier uncovered a network that uses fake websites targeting the EU and the United Nations to serve the Indian interests. Operating in 116 countries, the coordinated network of over 550 websites discredit Pakistan. Pakistan has already presented a dossier containing details of India's state sponsorship of terrorism. In India, police have detained several protesting farmers in an attempt to stop them from blocking major highways into New Delhi. Tens of thousands of farmers have been protesting near the capital against the new agriculture reforms now for the late 17 days. Despite the crackdown, farm unions vowed to continue their protest and announced a hunger strike on Monday. The protesters are demanding withdrawal of the new laws which allow the government to stop buying grain at fixed prices. They say legislations are meant to favor only big corporates. The government has held several rounds of talks with farmers but failed to break the deadlock. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and several British lawmakers have raised concerns over India's violence against protesters. ISIS has claimed responsibility for multiple rocket attacks in Kabul, which left 1 person dead and 2 severely injured. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Meanwhile, Afghanistan says that the remaining stages of the peace progress between the Taliban and the Kabul area must be pursued in the country. He said the peace talks within Afghanistan will create a credible security zone for all and enable the Afghans to own the process. Mohib added that negotiations within the country will help the actors realize the realities of Afghan society. He said the negotiators will be better aware of the plight and avoid additional costs in the process. Mohib also said foreign mediators in the peace process are influenced by external conditions, which does not serve the Afghan interests. Yemen's military and Southern Transitional Council forces have started withdrawing from contact lines in the Abiyan province. A spokesperson for the government forces said the warring parties are retreating to implement the Riyadh agreement. The spokesperson said Yemeni forces also withdrew from Sheikh Salim Fort, where intense armed clashes were taking place. He said the forces have retreated towards the Luder district, north of Abiyan's central town. Earlier, a Saudi-led coalition said both sides have agreed to form a government within a week. This came after months of talks in Saudi Arabia to draw the mechanism to implement the power-sharing Riyadh agreement. The United States has warned that the international community over a bill approved by Iran's parliament pledging to raise its uranium enrichment. In a statement, the U.S. Secretary of State said that the world must not reward Iranian nuclear gunmanship with economic appeasement. Mike Pompeo condemned Iran's decision and said that it will be a threat to the international community if implemented. He said that the bill will bring Iran to the 20% uranium enrichment level with no credible rationale for peaceful purpose. Pompeo said if Iran seeks sanctions relief, it must first demonstrate its seriousness by ceasing nuclear activities. He said Iran's failure to do so will be met with continued diplomatic and economic pressure and isolation. Iran says that the United States is tempting other countries to sacrifice the cause of Palestine. In a tweet, Iran's foreign ministry said U.S. brokered peace deals do not further diplomacy or serve in peace of the Middle East. It said that inciting others to recognize Israel and establish normal diplomatic relations is bullying and bribery. The ministry said that the United States pulls off this either by removing states from phony blacklists or offering F-35 fighter jets or recognizing their illegal occupation of foreign lands. This said that the United States is brokering the deals for states to shake hands with the thieves of Palestinian lands. The ministry said that the bullying activities will not last for long. Iran has excluded dissident journalist who was convicted of fomenting violence during the anti-government protests in 2017. Iran's Supreme Court sentenced Ruhollah Zam to death, convicting him of causing corruption on Earth. His Telegram channel Ahmad News, with over 1 million followers, has been set to stage for 2017 protests. After years in exile in France, Zam was captured by Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in 2019 for stirring up dissent. Turkey has summoned the Iranian ambassador over allegations made about Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Turkey's foreign ministry summoned Iranian ambassador to condemn Iran's allegations and summoning the Turkish envoy. Turkey rebuffed Iran's accusations, saying that such approach would serve those who want to spoil the ties between the two countries. Earlier, Iran summoned Turkey's ambassador to the country over a poem Erdogan read during a ceremony in Azerbaijan. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan says a six-nation regional platform in the Caucasus may help improve ties with Armenia. He first mentioned the platform, which includes Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Iran, and Armenia, during this trip to Baku. Speaking to the media, Erdogan said that it will provide a win-win opportunity for all parties in the region. He added that the Russian President Vladimir Putin was supportive of the idea. Erdogan said that Ankara will open its borders to Armenia if it contributes to regional peace. Earlier, Erdogan reviewed a military parade marking Azerbaijan's victory in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. Russia says that it will retaliate against British sanctions over the accusation of human rights abuses in Chechnya. The Foreign Ministry termed London's allegation as baseless and said that this will have a negative impact on their bilateral ties. It called on Britain to stop confirmational policies towards Russia. Britain has earlier slapped sanctions on 11 individuals, including officials from Russia, Venezuela, and the Gambia. It also imposed curbs on 3 senior Chechnyan officials and a National Guard unit soldier. President Donald Trump has criticized the United States Supreme Court after it rejected a lawsuit aimed at overturning the election results.
In a tweet, Trump said the Supreme Court really let us down, adding it is a legal disgrace and embarrassment to the U.S. The president said, if the Supreme Court shows great wisdom and courage, the American people will win the most important case in history. Rejecting the bid, the Supreme Court ruled that Texas did not have legal standing to bring the case. The ruling represents a setback for President Trump, who previously said the result would be settled in the Supreme Court. The lawsuit was supported by 18 state attorney generals and over 100 Republican members of Congress. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden said he has chosen Susan Rice for a domestic policy leadership role in his administration. For other positions, Biden selected former Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack to serve a second tenure as Agriculture Secretary and Katherine Tai as U.S. Trade Representative.
The United States has passed a defense bill with large enough majority to overcome President Donald Trump's promised veto. The bill would limit Trump's authority to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan, South Korea, and Germany. The National Defense Authorization Act sets $740 billion budget for the Defense Department. The 84-13 vote in the Republican-controlled Senate is way more than the required 2/3 votes to override a presidential veto. Trump objects to the bill as it continues to protect companies like Google, Twitter, and Facebook from liability. The bill leaves Trump with 10 days to veto, sign, or allow it to become law without his signature. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The UK says 4 Royal Navy patrol ships will be ready to protect its water in case of a no-Brexit deal. The Defense Ministry says it has conducted extensive planning and preparation to face any scenarios at the end of the transition period. The ministry said that the 80-meter-long vessels will have to stop power, check and impound all EU fishing boats. It added 14,000 personnel will be ready to support other government departments. It comes as the United Kingdom and the European Union said that they are unlikely to reach a post-Brexit trade deal by Sunday. The deadline was set by the two sides after months of talks failed to achieve an agreement. In case of no deal, both sides could impose tariffs on each other's goods. Britain quit the European Union in January, but remains an informal member until the 31st of December for a transition period. Switzerland has frozen the financial assets of President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. Government said that Lukashenko and his son are among 15 people banned from entering or traveling through Switzerland. It said that the individuals are alleged to be responsible for the use of violence and arbitrary arrests. Switzerland called for the dialogue between Belarus government and civil society. Bern also demanded that the release of arbitrarily detained Belarusians and investigation of allegations of torture by security forces. Belarus is embroiled in violent protests for 4 months now following controversial presidential election on the 9th of August. The global number of coronavirus infections has surpassed 70 million with more than 1.59 million deaths. Meanwhile, Brazil's COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 180,000 figure, with its caseload exceeding 6.7 million. More on the coronavirus in this report.
Even the countries that presented COVID-19's success story in the first wave couldn't evade COVID-19's deadly grip during the second wave. With more than 294,000 deaths, the U.S. has approved the emergency use of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. This is more than the number of U.S. soldiers that died in the Second World War. As health authorities prepare a mass inoculation campaign, experts warn U.S. will not see any meaningful impacts until well into 2021. Meanwhile, with world's second highest death toll, Brazil's doctors fear the carelessness of the public can spur an extreme surge of infections.
These
last few months have been very difficult. In the beginning, the big challenge was learning how to deal with the new virus. After this challenge, it was keeping up for many months with all the physical and psychological stress. And now, I would say that our challenge is facing the possibility of it happening all over again.
Situation remains bleak in Europe as WHO warned deaths and cases surged by 100% on the continent in past 6 weeks. British and French pharmaceutical giants GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi Pasteur has delayed their vaccines release until late 2021 after interim results showed insufficient immune response in the elderly. Meanwhile, paramedics in Russia are counting days for Sputnik V vaccine to be available to patients as Moscow reported 613 fatalities.
I think people should get vaccinated. We work in very hard conditions. It is hard to work in protective suits and we have to wear them regularly. People did not want to get flu vaccines either, but when they started to get vaccinated, herd immunity started to form and people started to get sick less. COVID-19 is similar to flu but has much harder complications.
Over in Asia, India recorded over 30,000 new cases and 442 new deaths, pushing its fatality toll to over 142,000. With 950 new infections, South Korea reported record daily increase in its cases since the pandemic began.
In Pakistan, 71 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 8,724. Health officials say over 2,700 people tested positive for the virus overnight. Meanwhile, more than 45,000 active COVID-19 cases have been detected in the country. The health ministry says out of over 435,000 countrywide cases, more than 381,000 people have recovered. Pakistan has dispatched relief assistance for rehabilitation of IDPs in newly liberated areas of Azerbaijan. Essential items including tents, blankets, and ready-to-eat meals arrived in Baku through a special Pakistan Air Force flight. Pakistan's envoy to Azerbaijan, Bilal Hay, said that the assistance is yet another testimony of Pakistan's affection for the brotherly people of Azerbaijan. He said that the government and the people of Pakistan have always stood by Azerbaijan. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa has attended a passing out ceremony parade at the Airport Security Force Academy in Karachi. General Bajwa expressed satisfaction with the performance of trainees and lauded participation of women in the force. He congratulated the trainees and distributed prizes among the position holders. A large number of serving and retired officials and family of passing out trainees witnessed the parade. Later, the Army Chief visited the headquarters of the Rangers. He appreciated the contributions of Sindh Rangers in maintaining peace and stability in Karachi. The United Nations Security Council members have accused North Korea of using the pandemic to crack down on the human rights of its people. The United States, Germany, Britain, France, Belgium, Estonia, and the Dominican Republic brought up the issue in a virtual meeting of the Security Council. German Ambassador Christoph Huygens said that the North Koreans prioritize its weapons program over the needs of the people. Pyongyang's isolation from the international community has worsened in the pandemic impact on its population. North Korea repeatedly rejects accusations of human rights abuses and blames sanctions for a dire humanitarian situation. The first international aid convoy arrived in Ethiopia's Tigray region since the fighting broke out over a month ago. The International Committee of Red Cross said that 7 trucks brought medicines and medical equipment to Mekelle. The convoy arrived as the United Nations expressed growing alarm over the plight of nearly 100,000 Eritrean refugees in Tigray. It has appealed for urgent access to assist them and 600,000 others who were dependent on food rations before the conflict even began. The United Nations also says that it has seen a number of reports of persecution of the Eritrean refugees in the Tigray region. In a statement, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said that the refugees are being killed or kidnapped or forcibly returned back. Argentina's lower house of Congress has approved a bill to legalize abortion in the country. Backed by President Alberto Fernandez, the draft law was passed with 131 votes in favor and 117 against. It will now move up to the Senate, where the even tighter vote is expected. The abortion bill in Argentina comes amid calls for greater reproductive rights for women. The initiative includes a parallel bill to assist women who want to continue with their pregnancy amid the economic difficulties. Amnesty International welcomed the vote and called the Senate not to turn its back on the women. In the United States, a car plowed into a crowd of about 50 people at a protest in Manhattan, injuring several. Police said no life-threatening injuries have been reported. Police said that they have detained the women behind the wheel for questioning. They added that the protest met by this incident was a Black Lives Matter demonstration. Earlier, a young black man, Casey Christopher Goodson, was shot by the police, triggering protests in Manhattan. The police have promised an independent and unbiased investigation. In Brazil, 2 people dressed as Santa Claus have delivered some unusual holiday cheer in Rio de Janeiro. Both were seen feeding the sharks and swimming with the stingrays at the city's aquarium. Santa has always been associated with a sighting on a chair, hugging children and lavishing them with gifts. But Santa has been seen scuba diving, swimming, and with the sharks remained an unusual sight until now. A person dressed as Santa wore a familiar red suit during his scuba dive and was joined quickly by Klaus, who was also wearing a festive costume. Aqua Rio visitors are able to watch aquarium staff dressed as Santa and Claus dive daily until Christmas. In Mexico, archaeologists have unearthed a new section of the famous Aztec Tower of Human Skulls. National Institute of Anthropology and History says a further 119 skulls have been uncovered. More in this report.
Mexican archaeologists have found remains of 119 more people, including women and several children, in a centuries-old Aztec Tower of Skulls. Known as Huezampatli, the skull rack dates back to the 1400s, which is located beneath the center of Mexico City.
We are seeing the external facade of the skull tower on the east side of the corresponding Aztec structure, which corresponds to the first stage of construction. The skulls were exhibited on the fence and were joined with mortar.
The tower, approximately 5 meters in diameter, was first discovered 5 years ago. In total, more than 600 skulls have now been found at the site.
We have been working since 2015, and up to the present day, we have been monitoring rehabilitation work on the building.
The tower's original discovery surprised anthropologists who expected to find the skulls of young male warriors, but they also come across the crania of women and children, raising questions about human sacrifice in Aztec Empire.
As face coverings have now become a part of people's attire, jewelry maker Nadia Billy is showing customers how to decorate their masks with jewelry she makes for Christmas and New Year parties. More about the holiday masks in this report.
With the holidays approaching, Greek jewelry maker Nadia Bell is trying to make the necessity of wearing a mask a little more pleasant for her customers. 42-year-old Bell's jewelry is custom-made only. Her client base includes many Greek celebrities as well as international customers.
Unfortunately, it looks that the situation will continue and we will have this accessory, which I think is very unflattering in our daily lives for a long time. So I thought to suggest to women ways to make this accessory more beautiful because we all have a need for beauty.
Bell says even though she finds the mask an unbecoming accessory, it has become a fashion statement and fashion designers are incorporating it into their collections. She says amid the pandemic, her mask creates a festive feeling among people.
Now that the holidays are coming, it is an opportunity on these days, especially during evening dinner parties, which we will somehow manage to have to wear our decorated masks and feel a bit better.
Bell says she is very busy for the holidays, especially with wedding rings, as Christmas and New Year are a popular time for marriage proposals.
It's now time for a short break. Stay with us.
My name is Khaya Ahmed. I am a writer and I have been writing since I was about 15 years old professionally. Personally, I've been writing long before then. I have worked on video games, comic books, television shows, and animated projects as well. I am one of the first Pakistanis to have my name in a AAA game as a writer. Something that I'm really proud of, something that I glow about whenever I speak about it, is my contribution as a consultant to the creation of Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. She's now finally getting her own TV series. I'm very excited about that. I also worked on Burqa Avenger with Unicorn Black. I was one of the writers there, and she was Pakistan's first female superhero for kids, and it was such an amazing opportunity to work with that team, and I'm so happy to say that we actually got nominated for an Emmy and we won an Eisner Award for our work. I got into this because I always loved watching things. I loved reading, I loved watching TV, I loved watching movies, I loved playing games, and I loved the effect that these characters had on me. I am very surprised by the comic industry in Pakistan. It is a very healthy atmosphere, and it is a very budding industry, actually. There's so many people here who, have made rich stories and contributed to it, and I'm just glad that I'm just one of the stones in a very large ocean. I have battled a lot. I have suffered a lot along the way, but at the end of the day, I'm so happy that I wake up and I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, so please do the same.
Welcome back. China's Chang'e 5 probe has completed an orbital maneuver to prepare to leave for Earth. China National Space Administration said the maneuver pushes the probe into the trajectory for its returns to the Earth. The space body said the combination carrying the lunar moon samples is returning after 6 days of waiting in the lunar orbit. It said the orbiter-returner combination will escape lunar gravity and enter the Moon-Earth transfer orbit. Chang'e 5 is one of the most complicated and challenging missions in China's aerospace history. It is also the world's first moon sample mission in more than 40 years. British musician FKA Twigs has filed a lawsuit against actor Shia LaBeouf. Talalia Burnett accuses the actor of physical and emotional abuse during their year-long relationship.
The civil lawsuit filed by FKA Twigs in Los Angeles Superior Court seeks unspecified damages for alleged sexual assault and emotional distress. Barnett's attorney Friedman says she initially wanted to resolve the matter privately, but since LaBeouf was unwilling to get help, Barnett filed suit to prevent others from unknowingly suffering similar abuse. LaBeouf found fame as a Disney Channel star on Even Stevens. He later appeared in movies including Transformers and Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. LaBeouf sought treatment for alcoholism in 2014 and 2017.
In the English Premier League, Aston Villa edged up past Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0 to stay at the Monolith Stadium. Villa snatched a victory in the final moments of the game thanks to Anwar Al-Ghazi's goal from a penalty. Both teams had a player sent off after they received 2 yellow cards. With this win, Aston Villa are now 8th on the table with 18 points, while Wolves moved to 11th. In yesterday's encounter, West Ham came from behind to beat Leeds United 2-1. Bayern Munich's treble-winning Robert Lewandowski has joined Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi as the 3 finalists for the Best FIFA Men's Player Award.
Governing body announced Lewandowski was top scorer for Bayern in the Champions League with 15 goals. The body said Lewandowski was also top scorer in Bundesliga with 34 goals. His former teammate and current Liverpool midfielder Thiago Alcantara was also nominated. Lewandowski's coach Hansi Flick is one of the 3 finalists for the Men's Coach of the Year. The category also includes Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp and Leeds United's Marcelo Bielsa. The Best FIFA Women's Player Award will go to one of Olympique Lyonnais Wendy Renard, Manchester City defender Lucy Bronze, or Chelsea forward Pernille Harder. Meanwhile, Chelsea manager Emma Hayes, Lyon's Jean-Luc Vasseur, and New England manager Serena Wayman are the 3 finalists for the Women's Coach of the Year award. The awards will be presented at a ceremony on December 17th.
In Formula One, Max Verstappen has put Red Bull on the pole for the first time this year for the season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The Dutchman beat the Mercedes duo of Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton into 2nd and 3rd. McLaren Lando Norris was in 4th and Verstappen's teammate Alexander Albon finished 5th. This is the only 2nd time this year that Mercedes have been denied pole. Hamilton was disappointed, but he said that he did not feel any under pressure. Veteran New Zealand batsman Ross Taylor has been dropped for the 2020 International Series against Pakistan, while Kane Williamson and Trent Bullitt have been recalled. New Zealand's selector Gavin Larson said Taylor missed out because of the quality and form of Devon Conway and Glenn Phillips. He said that the way the 2 batsmen have played against the West Indies was compelling. Larson said Taylor will have to fight to get his place back in the squad. He added that it's a brand of T20 cricket that New Zealand wants to move forward with. In golf, last year's British Open champion Hinako Shibuno seized a 3-stroke lead following the 2nd round of the U.S. Women's Open. The 22-year-old woman from Japan carded the 4 under 67 for a 3rd shot lead over Sweden's Lynn Grant. crediting her father for the win. American Amy Olsen seeded a first-round lead par 72, finishing her round tied for third with compatriots Caitlin Papp and Megan Kong. Meanwhile, two-time major winner Christy Kerr enjoyed a bogey-free 2-under par 69 at Cypress Creek despite a recent rib injury. The tournament was rescheduled from June due to the pandemic and is being played without spectators. In boxing, heavyweight world champion Anthony Joshua and Bulgarian Kubrat Pulev engaged in a face-to-face verbal sparring at their weigh-in for today's title clash.
The 31-year-old Joshua, who is putting his WBA, IBF and WBO belts on the line at Wembley Arena, hit the scales at 240.8 pounds. That was heavier than a year ago when the Briton reclaimed his titles from Andy Ruiz in Saudi Arabia at 16 stone 13, but lighter than the first Ruiz fight where he weighed in at 17 stone 9 and suffered a shock defeat. The 39-year-old Pulev stepped up a pound lighter than Joshua at 239.7 pounds and was in a fighting mood. Joshua, who will be the clear favorite in front of a 1,000 crowd, said he had heard it all before. Pulev, like Joshua, has suffered only one loss as a professional, a knockout by Vladimir Klitschko in 2014.
It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.